How are you, boxing fans? My name is Rick, on Boxing Club platform. I hope you're good, So I just want to tell you, about the podcast, okay, the subject. We're going to talk about Joe Bogner, he passed away last week, So, by the way, my condolences, to all the family, It's very sad, and I just want to talk, we're going to talk also, about the fight, Canelo Alvarez against Terence Crawford at Las Vegas this weekend. I think it will be a very nice fight. Don't miss it, boxing fans. So, Michael and me, okay, we have talking about, Joe Calzaghe, and the father, Enzo Calzaghe. We love Enzo Calzaghe a lot, He's a warrior, this gentleman, He was a warrior, He passed away also a few years ago. So, we're going to talk about those subjects, Michael Angelo Serra and myself, Rick Amel. So, I hope you will enjoy this podcast, boxing fans, okay? So, thank you very much. Bye-bye. Stay tuned. Bonjour tout le monde, j'espère que ça va bien. Donc, bienvenue au LondonMontreal Boxing Show avec Michael Angelo Serra et moi-même, Rick Amel. Vous savez, dans ce podcast-ci, nous allons parler donc de plusieurs sujets, dont Joe Bogner qui nous a quittés la semaine passée, qui est un citoyen, qui a été un citoyen britannique en fait. Nous allons parler aussi donc du fameux combat de ce week-end, fan de boxe. N'oubliez pas, je crois qu'il va y avoir Christian Billy qui va être dans ce combat-là. Vraiment à voir absolument donc dans la sous-carte en fait. Nous allons donc parler du combat principal dans ce podcast-là, bien sûr, Canelo Alvarez qui va se confronter à Terence Crawford. Et nous allons parler aussi, donc, parce que la dernière fois, nous n'avons pas eu le temps de parler au complet du podcast, du sujet, en fait, qui était Joe Calzaghe et Enzo Calzaghe, qu'on a adoré Enzo Calzaghe pour son dynamisme sur le ring, sa hargne sur le ring aussi, donc, qui a fait pousser Joe vers les plus hauts sommets de la boxe, fan de boxe. Donc, et voilà. Merci donc de nous écouter sur The LondonMontreal Boxing Show avec Michael Angelo Serra et moi-même, Rick Amel. Et il va y avoir des sous-titres en dessous en français. Et pour ceux qui parlent anglais, les sous-titres aussi vont être en anglais pour vous. Donc, au plaisir, à plus tard. J'espère que vous allez aimer. Restez là, fan de boxe. Merci, au revoir.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're ready.
We're ready.
Okay, Richard. Yeah.
Yes.
Some sad news to begin the show. Obviously, the passing of Joe Bogner last week, or better known as Bugner or Bugner over here in England, though the correct pronunciation is Bogner, but we'll call him Bugner. So, because I suppose mostly English people will be watching. What's your memories of Joe Bogner?
Joe Bogner, for me, is a very good fighter, and I've seen a very good fight with Muhammad Ali, Two fights with Muhammad Ali. One in 1973, 73, yes? And the other one, 75, I think.
Yes.
Two fights. Very good fights, yes. He's a very gentleman, this guy.
Do you remember him actually, these fights at the actual time, or were you maybe too young to remember?
Was too young, but I've seen that, a few years ago. Yes.
Okay.
Two very good fights, He's very strong. He's a very good athlete, Bogner, and Muhammad Ali made, I think, a sparring with Joe Bogner, to see his abilities, in the ring. Yeah.
Yes. Well, in 1970, Joe, I remember the second fight between Ali and Bogner. I remember that second fight for the world heavyweight title. And I remember they even made a doll of Bogner. They made a doll of Ali, but they made a doll. I don't know if it was a knockoff doll from China of Joe Bogner. I remember that, but it's a very rare toy to buy. I'd love to own one. But anyhow, the thing is, in 1970, Bogner, he was obviously an up-and-coming fighter. He hadn't boxed for the British title as of yet. He boxed for that in 1971. but he went to New York, I believe it was, and he's in America, and he met Muhammad Ali, and he paid Muhammad Ali £1,000 or $1,000 to spar Ali.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, this is a very true story. And I'm not too sure how the spar went. I think obviously Bugner held his own, and Bugner also sparred Sonny Liston. I'll tell you about it. But obviously, then in 1971, he won the British, Commonwealth, and European titles in one night against our beloved Henry Cooper, who's a national hero, national treasure. But the thing is, the British public at the time, they turned on Bugner because he wasn't really British. He was an Hungarian. He was born in Hungary. And you go to Hungary and you say the name Joe Bugner and nobody knows who he is. Because he left there.
You're not serious.
Yes. Nobody knows who Joe Bugner.
What a shame.
No. Probably an handful of proper boxing people do. But if he had stayed in Hungary, for example, hypothetically speaking, and stayed an Hungarian national, he would have worked his way to the world title anyway. Obviously. But
Michael, I'm not surprised at all. I think it's normal. The people in our region, it's like that.
Bugner, as I say, he's not known out there as an Hungarian. So if he had remained an Hungarian citizen, which he still was actually all the time, all the way through his life, he still always had his Hungarian passport. But though he became an Australian national, he had many passports. But if he had, then obviously, if he'd been an Hungarian, he would have been known by everybody in Hungary that this is the guy who boxed Ali. He's one of ours. But they sadly never did. But when he left Hungary as a refugee back in the 50s, late 50s, he obviously came over here. He moved to Bedford. And funnily enough, I'll tell you a little story. He used to go to the same school as Enzo Calzaghe. And Enzo Calzaghe's sister, no disrespect to Joe Bugner, but she used to beat Bugner up in the playground. That's a story that I heard from Enzo Calzaghe many years back. But no, he was to me the complete fighter. 6'4", as you said yourself, athletic, blonde like an Adonis, handsome-looking guy. In the movies with Bud Spencer.
He was an actor also, yes.
Yes, he was in the 70s.
With Jean-Claude Van Damme, no?
Yes, he was in Street Fighter. Yes, he was. Yes,
it's the right movie.
Yes, he was indeed. That was back in the 90s. But Bugner, he was also an accomplished discus player, and he was going to. I believe he was going to go and represent Australia in the 1996 Olympics, but that never happened. I think it was 2000 Olympics, but it never happened.
Sorry, Michael, if I can allow something, he was an European champion, this guy, I think.
Yes. He won the British, Commonwealth and European all in the same night by beating Henry Cooper for Cooper's titles. And it was a very, very controversial decision. The referee, Harry Gibbs, gave it to Bugner, I think, by a point or half a point, something like that. And a majority of people felt that Cooper was robbed. There's one or two who believe Bugner won. But the nation turned on Bugner. He became the bad guy, and it was through no fault of his own. But the difference is he shut up many American critics. Obviously, Tommy Farr, who boxed Joe Louis way back in 37, I believe it was, in Louis' first defense, he went the distance with Louis. But ever since then, the Americans have seemed to mock the British heavyweights. They dubbed them the horizontal heavyweights because they're always laying flat.
Oh, yeah.
But until then, Joe Bugner came along and he shut up the American critics because he was not the horizontal type. He was the guy who stood straight and he went the distance, as you said, with Ali twice. And then he got criticised also for the...
Michael, he was not happy, with the second fight against Ali, okay? He was not happy, about the decision. He was not happy about himself, I think. He was mad, this day, I think.
They said he should have pushed forward, but the thing with Joe Bugner is, back in the early 60s, early in his career, in the late 60s, early in his career, rather, he boxed a guy called Ulrich Regis in Shoreditch Town in London, not far from Bethnal Green, you'll call. And he boxed this guy, I think he was a Trinidadian, a Caribbean fighter, and it went the distance. And after the fight, Ulrich Regis suffered a bleed on the brain and he died. And a lot of people attach that blame to Bugner not being so aggressive. And the thing is, it's okay that, people from outside of, who have not experienced this saying, oh, we should be more aggressive. It's a thing, I believe, that can destroy a fighter's psyche. It's like a fight that can get knocked out. You become gun shy.
If I can allow something, I think Chris Eubank made the same thing, in the ring with another competitor, I think.
Yes, he did, after the Michael Watson fight, the second fight. But that affected Bugner, and rightfully so, because obviously he doesn't want someone else to die, So, yes, he did adopt a safety first approach to his fights. But a rival Bugner was a guy like he boxed Richard Dunn in 1976. And Dunn...
Gentleman, this guy. Richard Dunn. I love Richard Dunn. Gentleman, this guy. He fought with Ali, too.
Yes, he did. And he put up a good show against Ali. But the thing is, one of his fans sent a toilet seat to Joe Bugner's mother. And it was obviously a message. And obviously Bugner heard about it. And Bugner was really wild up. Bugner went out there. And Andy Bugner was a dangerous Bugner. And he knocked out Dunn in one round. And same thing happened against the Welsh fighter. I think it was his third or fourth comeback of Joe's. He boxed this Welsh fighter called Winston Allen. And Allen, he headbutted Joe Bugner, cut his eye, and Joe straight away, first punch, crossed right hand, put Allen down, and Joe standing over him. So an angry Bugner was a dangerous one. But the thing with Joe Bugner, as I say, if anyone was, to me, the complete heavyweight, it was him. He had everything. He could box, he could fight, he could take a heck of a punch. And the thing is, Joe boxed Ernie Shavers way back in 82 in Dallas. And the thing is, you watch that fight. When Joe gets floored, there's no cobwebs, he's not shaken, he gets straight up. He's clear-eyed, he's clear-headed. Shavers knocks people's spark out, but Bugner, no problem. But he got straight up and he was stopped on a cut eye. So that, and also the fight against Joe Frazier, it showed you how much art he had, how much, what a great chin he had. Just a great fighter. And sadly, boxing, and his record is littered with these names, and it reads as an who's who of the heavyweight division, when it actually matters, And for me, he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, challengers for the heavyweight championship of the world. He's way up there. I mean, there's been some notable challenges through the years. Sailor Tom Sharkey, comes to James J. Jeffries, many others. But Joe Bugner, he's definitely at the top of that list, possibly number one in that list for me. But great fighter and just an amazing personality also.
Yeah, Muhammad Ali said one day, about Bugner, he was one of the best fighter he fought, this gentleman.
Yeah, well, he was on Parkinson in 1974, Ali was, just after I believe he beat Foreman. And he actually said, you'll knock Joe Bugner, the British do, because they was doing, but if I retired, he will be the next heavyweight champ. And, who's going to argue with the man himself? Muhammad Ali, he'd been in the ring with him twice. But Joe Bugner was a very good fighter, great fighter. And sadly, no longer with us, but, at least he's at peace now. That's the main thing. Because I know he had dementia in his later years.
Michael, my sympathy for his family, for his family members, and all his friends,
Yeah. He had a son also, Joe Bugner Jr., J.A. Bugner Jr., who boxed also professionally, but obviously didn't quite get to the heights of his father. But yeah, very sad for British boxing and for world boxing.
So, Michael, we're ready to talk about the event, this weekend. A very good event in Las Vegas, in the Allegiant Stadium, in Las Vegas. Can't wait to see this fight, Michael. And you?
Yes, it's a great fight. As you know yourself, I'm not a massive Canelo fan. He's a good fighter, a very good fighter. He's an exception. I mean, this is, to me, in essence, a battle for not just a title fight, whatever, it's a battle for the crown of pound for pound best in the world. I think these two guys are better than Usyk. How do you rate them yourself? Do you put them above Usyk pound for pound?
By the Ring magazine, I think Canelo is the 8th one and Crawford the 3rd one, So it's two very good competitors, this weekend.
Sorry, who's Ring Magazine's number one? Who's Ring Magazine's number one?
Yes.
Who's the number one for me?
I've read something, Crawford, the third one, and Canelo, the eighth one.
Do you know number one is, though? Do you know number one is? Is it Usyk?
The number one, maybe Usyk.
Usyk, yeah, that's a good call. But I rank them above him.
I think it's Usyk.
I rank Crawford as number one. I've got him at number one, Usyk about two, and the other guy.
Maybe, Michael, maybe.
But it's like a kind of it's he's out of his weight class, Crawford. He's going in against the naturally bigger guy, and the old adage in boxing is a great little one will never beat a good big one.
Yes.
The thing is, he's coming up against a great big one in Canelo, and Canelo, I'm going to say this, I know I'm sounding like I'm old, but when I first saw Canelo, and a lot of people said this, I said, he bears a facial resemblance to Canada's, your own Matthew Hilton, But I would like to say one thing. He does not take a punch like Matthew Hilton, and he does not punch nowhere near as hard as Matthew Hilton. There's no way. But he's a technically gifted boxer, technically gifted guy. I've always got to chuck Matthew Hilton in the equation. I love Matthew Hilton.
Yeah.
But, he was a great fighter himself. But getting back to the fight, Crawford, he's a very, very skillful fighter. For me, he is a throwback. He could have boxed in any era, He could have been in there. Some people might go, what? But I believe he could have been in there with guys like Robertson, any of them, Benny Leonard, or any of those guys, Ray Leonard. He's a throwback. To me, he's an all-time great. And I believe that he's a greater fighter than Canelo. I think the only thing that's going to come into it in Canelo's favour is going to be size. That's all, and maybe the power. But Canelo's been wobbled. I believe once or twice. He got wobbled badly, I think, against Floyd Mayweather. And, so, yeah, he's sort of like, he's felt his way into the weight now. Obviously, he was a boy then. But I don't think you can make a chin much better. You can only improve on what you're born with. The chin you've got. That's it. You can improve your neck muscle.
I think you're right, Michael. Canelo, he's got a very good chin, very good chin.
But he can be hurt. He can be wobbled. And so, no, everybody's thinking, he's in fit. No, he's not, because I've seen him get wobbled. So he can be hurt. You only got to hit any guy, at the right time, in the right place, and it's over. Crawford, I think speed equates to power sometimes. And I'm not saying Crawford's going to win this fight easily. It's going to be a very hard fight. But as I said before, size is on Canelo's side.
Yeah.
But I just feel that Canelo, he's coming up against something that he hasn't come up against before. He was very fortunate against Golovkin. To get those two decisions, from what I've heard. I haven't never seen those fights. But,
Michael, the first fight, it was very close, very close with Golovkin. Did you remember that?
I know. I've never seen it, but I've heard about it. I've read comments, so it was close. But then I read that the second fight, Golovkin should have won. Do you agree with that?
I think it was very close, but I think the first fight, it was a lot of people said Golovkin has won the fight, but it was a close fight. It's hard to say that, Imagine if we were judges. It's very hard, to make this kind of decision as a judge.
Sometimes, you've got three judges. They sit separate sides of the ring, because one guy can see punches land and the other guy may not see that punch land. So really, I think you've got to have four judges, really, or one. I
agree.
It's very hard, or a bird's eye view somehow of actually seeing the punch land from. And it's very hard. Sometimes you can look at the fight. I've scored fights before. Vito Antuofermo versus when Marvin Hagler had his first world title fight. in 79, and this was against Vito Antuofermo. Obviously, Agli was avoided like the plague by everyone, but Antuofermo stepped up. He was champion, and I watched that fight the first time, and I had it a draw. Now, a lot of people say Agli was robbed. I watched it a second time a few years later, and Agli won the fight by 2 rounds. So it's one of those.
Absolutely, Michael. Absolutely.
Yeah, I could watch it. Yeah, I could watch it. So, and that's the beauty of the beast with scoring fights. Sometimes you'll see a round differently to the other to the first time you saw it. It's like watching a film, Richard.
Yeah.
You watch a film the first time, you watch it a second time, there'll be something in it you haven't noticed the first time. That happens to me a lot, and that's the same with boxing, scoring fights. It's very hard, sometimes. Obviously, some fights, it's, clear to see who won the fight. If it's a landslide decision, like Joe Calzaghe and Jeff Lacey, for example, which was obviously he was winning easily. Joe was. He was winning it, but,
I agree with that. Yes, when you're not concentrated, and you see a fight, you can miss an important detail, in this fight. Yeah,
absolutely. But yourself, how do you see this fight panning out Saturday between Crawford and Canelo?
Okay, the fight, I think the beginning, it's going to be, studying fight, it would be a chess match, I think, Michael, I think Crawford want to fight by distance. It's clear. He don't want to be close. And Canelo want to be close because he's got power. Okay. So he's very dangerous, and Crawford knows that. He gonna take care about Canelo for the first, maybe the second, the third round. He's gonna take care about Canelo a lot. He's gonna fight by distance, and I think he's gonna be better and better round by round. Crawford, okay. Canelo, he doesn't make knockouts for a few times, a few times. So this fight, I think it won't be a knockout finishing fight. It's going to be, I think, for myself, a decision fight, I think, at the end. Okay. And it's going to be strategic, this fight. But something, Canelo's got the power, and he knows that, okay? Crawford can be very good, but if he's touched by Canelo and he's hurt, he won't be able to win this fight, I think, honestly.
I mean, Canelo, obviously, as you're aware, in the 80s, it was a big thing with more so the magazines, the boxing periodicals where they had the super fight. Super Fight 81, for example, was Leonard Ernst, the first fight. 82 was Owens Cooney, and so forth. 87 was Agler Leonard. So this is legitimately a bona fide super fight because it's one of those. It's a toss-up. Who wins? Who can? It's hard. It's intriguing because there's so many, tangibles to this fight. And it's an hard one. So this is what makes it, has those ingredients to make this a super fight. It's what the Americans call a pick'em, and it's a classic pick'em fight. So I feel that Crawford's going to be. I think Canelo's going to start stronger. Going to try and impose himself a little bit early on. He's going to impose himself quite a bit, actually, not a little bit, and he's going to try and bully, I think, Crawford in the early going. Then I think Crawford's going to figure him out. Because Crawford, to me, he's just a sublime boxer. He's a brilliant technician, beautiful fighter. And as I say, I will go on record and I will say Terence Crawford is a pound-for-pound all-time great. Don't matter what happens Saturday. If he gets stopped in the first, he is an all-time great. He's cemented his legend for me. But this fight, as I say, has a lot of tangibles, a lot of questions, and we're going to find out what happens on Saturday. But I see that Canelo will probably take the first 3 or 4 rounds, but then I think Crawford edges his way in, and this is where he does his better work. As you said, from the outside, and I feel Crawford will turn on a masterclass. But the thing is, Richard, as you know, and I shouldn't say this, but where there's Canelo and there's decisions, There's controversy.
Oh, yes. But, you know, when the fight is...
I said that, not you. But so
No, no.
that's the thing. You know, so and it's a fact. It's a fact. You know, it's everybody will agree with it. I think there's been some times when, you know, we've had some like what I feel, as I say, with the Golovkin fights. I just thought that Golovkin was robbed of getting Bernard Hopkins' record. You know, I that's what I feel. That's truly what I feel. But again, I haven't seen those fights, so maybe I shouldn't really comment about them until I actually watch. But I've heard that one of those losses to Canelo from Golovkin was, many were saying that Golovkin was robbed. But anyway, that said,
one point about it, you know, I think
yeah, sure.
Eddie Hearn had, you know, Canelo at this time. I think the second or the third fight. I think it's the third fight, but yes, the third fight. He was 40 years old, Golovkin, you know. But I think Eddie Hearn wanted at this time, you know, to make Golovkin older for this fight, you know. I know Eddie Hearn, you know, he's a very smart manager, okay?
Yeah, of course he has great business acumen, and to get to the top of the game, you've got to have that, you know. But you know, again, you know, we're going just pushing forward a little bit. I'll just conclude the Golovkin, Canelo versus Crawford fight prediction. I believe that, as I say, Canelo take the early going, he'll be strong, and then I feel that Crawford will come into his own, and then he'll start to nip and tuck. He'll do enough. And then I think that as the fight wears on, Crawford will start to win the rounds bigger. And I feel that will be enough to take a decision. But irrespective of what I've just said, and even if that does happen, as I've just said it, it's the judges, isn't it? It's, you know, that's where the controversy creeps in. So we'll see. If we got fair judges, then we'll get a fair decision. Yeah. But I'm going to go for Crawford. And yourself, you go for?
But it depends. You know, Usyk, he said recently, he said Crawford has a great chance to win the fight. You know, so and Usyk, you know, he knows boxing. Okay,
he
knows Crawford. Okay, he likes Crawford. I don't know if he likes Canelo, but he said Crawford will win this Saturday night.
I feel so. Yourself? Who did you have? I have Crawford on points. Yourself?
Yeah, I think, you know, for myself, Canelo will win by decision, but a very close decision. Maybe a majority decision. I don't like this kind of wins, you know. Majority decision, I don't like it, you know, when it's a championship fight, okay? I don't know how to say that, but it's at this moment it's very close. You know, it's like, you know, Beterbiev 2, you know, against Bivol. Did you remember this fight, Michael? It was a very close fight, you know. And for myself, I thought Beterbiev has won the fight, you know, but the judges said Bivol won this fight by majority decision. It's sad, you know, when you make this kind of decision, but that's life, that's boxing.
That's boxing. Boxing is very subjective, especially when it comes to close decisions. You know, it's one of those. I mean, I've seen some fights that have been absolute robberies. There'll be some who will echo my sentiments on this one, and some will think, well, what fight was that? Because Johnny Nelson, he was a world cruiserweight champion from England, same gym as Nassim Ahmed. And he fought a guy called Guillermo Jones. Now, Guillermo Jones had boxed at light middleweight, believe it or not, and he was a 6'4" light middleweight. And he boxed, I believe it was the Frenchman, Laurent Boudouani for the WBA light middleweight. Anyway, I think he lost that, and he went all the way up to cruiserweight because he was a string bean, this guy was, and he went up to cruiser. And he fought Johnny Nelson I think it was in Sheffield, in Nelson's hometown. And he won that fight, Guillermo Jones, but they gave it to Nelson. And I thought that was an absolute robbery. And something else, another fight with Jeff Fenech from Australia, when he boxed Zuma Nelson in Las Vegas, the first fight. The second fight, there was no argument. Nelson left no argument because he stopped Jeff Fenech in 8 rounds. But that first fight, you know, Nelson came out afterwards. Obviously, had lost his wife, which was terrible. That can affect anybody, you know. But he also claimed that he had malaria, and admittedly, he didn't look quite right. You know, you can see if someone's not well, their face, their eyes. But Jeff won that fight. He bullied Nelson. Now, watching that live from Vegas, I watched that and I had Fenech a winner by about 3 or 4 rounds. Again, this is where we get into watching fights the second time and seeing things differently. And I thought Fenech trounced him by a good 4 rounds and deserved to get the decision. But they scored it a draw. Fenech said, I'm ready to put the gloves back on and do another 12 rounds now. Anyhow, that was just Jeff sounding off afterwards. But that for me was a robbery. But then I watched it a few years back recently because they awarded Jeff Fenech, the WBC, a 4th world title. Though they obviously can't change the actual result. The result stands. But they felt that, you know, they had a team of guys in the WBC. I think it was like this office or something. It was one of these sort of like seminars, WBC seminar. And they had 3 officiating judges in 2022 sitting there watching a fight from 30 years previously, scoring it. They scored it for Fenech. And then they said, you won that fight, there's your WBC belt. But that does not change the result. But I'm just saying, now I watched that the second time because, you know, I just thought, yeah, I gave Fenech by 4 rounds at the time. I watched it live. And I watched it, as I say, a few years back, and I had Fenech just winning that by 2 rounds. So where I had it as a robbery, now I've come to the conclusion that it wasn't a robbery, but Fenech won. So, you know, there's that. So maybe I'll watch it again. Someone once said, I will say his name, Peter Silkoff. He's a great fight film collector and a boxing historian himself. And Peter said to me, I had that fight a draw. In actual fact, I'm sure he said that he felt that Nelson won the fight. He said, watch the fight and watch what Nelson does on the ropes. He makes Fenech miss a lot. So that's something I didn't really pick up on. So, Peter, if you're watching, because we're going to tag you in this, I want to hear what you've got to say about this decision, because you're one of the few people, because the majority, the general consensus is...
You know, Michael, sometimes, yeah. You know, we have a lot of corruption, you know, and every part of any field, you know, and boxing is...
No names, we don't have to mention names, but yes, we get corruption, of course we do, in all sports.
Yeah.
The 1984 Olympics, when Holyfield hit Kevin Barry, the New Zealander, after...
Roy Jones, the same thing with Roy Jones. The same thing. The gold medal, he lost it, you know, but he deserved the gold medal.
But the big guy who won it was a Yugoslavian who went on to win the light heavyweight class of 84 called Anton Josipovic. Now, Josipovic, he was meant to fight Holyfield in 1985. It was going to be a fight unofficially for the gold medal in the pro ranks. But Josipovic got, because there was trouble in Serbia, Bosnia back then, the troubles back then in the former Yugoslavia. And Josipovic, he got called into the Yugoslavian army, and his career was ended there and then. He never died, I don't think, but he in action. But that fight was then forever shelved. But this happens, and the thing is, obviously, another thing. Getting back, Jeff Fenech, just reminded me. He boxed in the same Olympics, and he fought a guy called another Yugoslavian, Vedsovsky or something like that. His name was. And Fenech was robbed. But what they did in that 1984 Olympics, I'm sure you remember, they had a decision. They'd give a decision to Fenech, and then all of a sudden they'd have a tally up again and say, "No, we're giving the decision to the other guy, Vedsovsky. We're giving him the decision," and that's exactly what happened. So Fenech, they had to on TV film the interview afterwards several different times because Jeff. He's Maltese, really, though he's Australian, but he was turning the air blue. He was swearing a lot, you know. So they had to go with the cleaner version, which is very hard with a guy like Jeffrey Fenech.
But that's life, Michael. Sometimes you can do nothing about it, you know. It's corruption.
That's it. And the thing is, Jeff Fenech, he became a world champion. I think it was in his fourth fight. He beat a guy called Satio Shingaki I think it was he was from the Orient, Japan, I believe. Anyhow, he beat Shingaki, and then he got the chance of revenge, though he didn't necessarily, to fight the actual gold medal winner of his class, Steve McCrory, brother of Milt McCrory. And Jeff beat McCrory. And that was, again, that angle of Olympic revenge, you know. They don't actually box in the Olympics or in as amateurs, I don't believe.
Okay.
But, yeah, there's always going to be that controversy in all sports, really. But mostly it seems to be in boxing. And don't you just love it?
Yes, but can we talk also? It's very interesting, Michael. Can we talk a little bit about Joe Calzaghe and Enzo Calzaghe? Because the last time it was your friend. I salute your friend, okay? I salute Mr. Colorusso, Mr.
Carlo Colorusso, yeah.
Colorusso.
He's my favourite British fighter of all times. In actual fact, he's probably my favourite fighter of all times, you know. Just love the guy, you know, never had anything. As we said before, he had to earn it. And he had to earn it against many setbacks, you know, giving away weight, giving away experience. He wasn't mollycoddled.
What do you think, Michael, about a fight, you know, Joe Calzaghe against Cal Froch? Cal Froch.
Oh, wow. Well, you know, I heard a horrible rumour recently that Mr. Turkey, I don't know, Akalosha, whatever his name is, sorry, he wanted this fight to happen, and they.
Oh no, not at this time. Not at this time.
No, I know, and Joe was tempted, but obviously and Robin Reed was jumping in because he had a controversial loss to Calzaghe. But I'd like to say something. Robin Reed is nowhere near as good as Calzaghe because what happened in that fight? A lot of people, the British fight public, and they're going to hate me for this. They're a fickle bunch. They did it with Joe Bugger in 1971 with Cooper, and they did it with Joe Calzaghe. Against Robin Reed, they forget that Calzaghe hurt his hand early on in that fight, and Joe was literally a one-handed fighter. Not knocking Robin Reed. Robin Reed was a very good fighter in his own right. He was very rugged, very durable guy, but he was not a technical boxer, a masterclass boxer like Joe Calzaghe. But he could revert to becoming a boxer when he had to, which he did against Emery Wharton. Robin Reed did. And he had to box against Wharton because Wharton was a man of iron. He had a terrific left hook. But, and Wharton, he hit one opponent so hard, this is how hard he could hit. It's a bit like Matthew Orton, Eddie Wharton. He hit an opponent, Rod Carr, in a Commonwealth super middleweight title defense. I'm going back 30 odd years now. And his knuckle went from here to here. He injured his hand, but he went on to win the fight. Or it was a draw. No, he won the fight, actually. But, yeah, that was... for me, you know, again, Reed chucked his hat in the ring and said, you know, we'll have a rematch. You know, but these are 40-year-old, 50-year-old guys. It shouldn't be happening. And thank God it's not happened. Nothing's been heard of it since. But Calzaghe Froch, met Joe Calzaghe, met Carl Froch. Love you guy, Carl Froch. Joe Calzaghe's okay. He's a bit cold. But no, he's okay. He's okay when you put him. But I think Joe would have been too busy for him. And just that bit quicker, and I just feel that Joe would have won in points. That it would have been another one, another hard fight.
It's interesting, yeah, by points, okay.
Yeah, no controversy, I don't feel. I feel that Joe would have won it by at least 2-3 rounds, maybe 4 rounds even. Because Joe had that boxing bit, and he had the speed. That's the thing. Joe could handle... I know it's not necessarily saying Froch is a bigger... Well, he is a bigger guy slightly than Joe in height. But, you know, they're both like guys. But Joe, the same... weight, but the thing is with Joe, he boxed Chris Eubank's cousin, Bobby Joe Edwards, who was a cruiserweight, 13 stone 8, or maybe 14 stone, whatever, coming in against super middleweight Joe Calzaghe, and Calzaghe was far too quick for him. He absolutely stood Bobby Joe Edwards on his head. Yeah. And Joe obviously then went on and funnily enough fought his cousin for the world title, Chris Eubank. But no, I go for Joe. And yourself? I go for Joe on points. And yourself? Who would you?
I think yes. I think Joe would have won this fight. Yes, I think honestly by decision. Yes, by decision because Carl Froch is too strong and mentally he's too strong. I think. But I like this kind of boxer, you know. Carl Froch, he's a warrior, you know. But that's it. I like Enzo also, you know. Enzo.
There'll never be enough of him. You know, this is the sad thing. Jimmy Tibbs is still alive, but he's retired from professional boxing now. His son's probably a chip off the old block, Mark Tibbs. He's got sort of like the dad's temperament a little bit. but Jimmy was alone on his own. Jimmy Tibbs in 1983. He's a very quick-tempered man. He's a nice man. I've met him. I've met Jimmy Tibbs, and he's a nice guy. Terrific. He's a boxing man through and through. And the thing is with Jimmy Tibbs, as I say, he has a short fuse, just like Enzo Calzaghe.
Okay.
And he was in a gym one day. Lloyd Hunnigan, the former world welterweight champion. A lot of people won't like me talking about this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Jimmy Tibbs was an ex-professional. He sparred Muhammad Ali. Ali let him floor for a publicity photo. And he boxed on the same show as Muhammad Ali, Henry Cooper, the second fight in 66. Anyhow, he was Southern Area champion, like the way Jimmy Tibbs was. And Tibbs, he was in the gym and he was waiting for Hunnigan. This is 1983 now we're going forward to. And he walked in with Frank Bruno, the former world heavyweight champ. Frank Bruno walked in with Hunnigan and they're late. So Tibbs said to him, what time do you call this? And Hunnigan called him something I can't repeat, an expletive. He called him a name. And Tibbs exploded. And there's two versions. The one that Hunnigan said in 1987, prior to his defence against Johnny Bumpus on his preview on national TV over there, was that they both got prized apart from each other.
How are you, boxing fans? So my name is Rick, and now on the London-Montreal boxing show with Michael Angelo Serra and myself, Rick Amel. I hope you've liked this podcast, okay, between Michael and me about, it was about Joe Bogner, Joe Bogner. I just want to make a condolence, for the family and all the friends, and we have spoken also, about the Canelo and Terence Crawford, the fight this weekend at Las Vegas. Don't miss it, this fight, boxing fans. I think it will be a very great fight. And we have spoken also, about Enzo and Joe Calzaghe, So I hope you have liked, this podcast again, we have a lot of fun, to make it for you, boxing fans. So take care of you, and we will see us for another podcast, boxing fans. Bye-bye.